Hi guys, Emily from ARC here, coming to you on this wonderfully wintry day. I wanted to reach out and talk to the ARC universe this week because, as you may have seen, this week we are going to be addressing driving and driving issues, returning to driving with your patients. So this can be a very thorny issue, and it's something that unless therapists have sought further training, we don't tend to know that much about in detail. So when it comes up in rehabilitation, your patient is asking, can I return to driving? Or worse again, they're not asking and you aren't asking either because you just don't want to know. It's something that is good to know, kind of what is the research saying about this? Do patients return to driving? Are there more crashes when they do? What do they drive? Are they less safe? So I found an interesting article when I was doing some research on the topic that I want to give you guys some information from. Firstly, it's important to know that I'm going to be referring to traumatic brain injury here. So how many patients post moderate or severe traumatic brain injury return to driving? Well, over a 10-year period following their injury, it's shown that more than 70% of individuals will return to driving. So that's a very large number. That means that when we have our patients who present with moderate or severe brain injury, returning to driving is something that we can expect that they will be doing. Maybe not immediately, maybe post driver assessment, but it is something that we should assume our patients are going to be doing. However, there's less information out there as to the driver behavior once they do return to driving. Are they safer? Is there more crashes? Is this something we should be concerned about? So again, this is where this article was very helpful, examining driver safety and behavior following on-road assessment and rehabilitation. So this was a questionnaire that was mailed out to 209 participants post TBI who had been assessed as fit to resume driving post a driver assessment or rehabilitation program. Of those 209, 106 responded to the questionnaire, showing their modified driving behaviours and their safety. So cutting to the chase, was there more crashes? Well, crashes pre-injury were reported by 31% of participants and post-injury by 28% of participants. So actually there was no increase in crashes for these returning drivers. No, depending on whether they had either gone through rehabilitation for driving that included on-road driving lessons or not, where they had just done an on-road driving assessment, had no impact on whether they had higher crash rates. So what kind of behaviours then could we expect from these drivers? Well, both groups, those who had an on-road driving assessment and those who had on-road driving lessons post their TBI, both groups reported having modifying some of their driving behaviours. So they would avoid heavy traffic, driving at night, taking passengers, driving on freeways. However, they also reported some ongoing issues, including navigational difficulties, with more difficulty reported planning and remembering routes. They also reported that fatigue was a commonly felt issue, concentration, memory, and slowness. However, as we can see, they were modifying their behavior to allow for some of these limitations. The study itself, of course, we always have to examine these things a bit critically. Some of the limitations to the study may, of course, be that firstly it was a questionnaire, a self-reported questionnaire, so there can be a little bit of memory or response bias that you can expect. There also, were 100 non-responders, which, you could wonder if some of the non-respondents didn't decline to respond for fear of reporting a higher crash record or poor driving behaviours. In general, however, though, this study did find that based on self-report, many drivers with moderate to severe TBI who had passed an on-road assessment either with or without driver rehabilitation modify their driving behaviour to compensate for their ongoing impairment effectively, and then they continue to drive safely in the longer term. Bear in mind, this questionnaire was 4.5 years after their initial injury. And the study also highlighted the fact that navigational difficulties were an ongoing problem experienced post-TBI, which suggests that it's something that perhaps should be included in driver rehab and driver ed courses for those post-TBI. So as I said, this was an interesting study with some interesting information. I'm going to include the link to the study in the information below, which also includes the questionnaire that was given to those patients post-TBI and the questionnaire about their return to driving. So if you have any input, anything you want to add to it, we'd love to hear from you. It's always great to hear from our ARC followers, and we'll be back soon with more info.